I think we're going. Um, all right, so I'm going to try this resurrecting the red letters thing. Just to give a quick history on it. I grew up really not trusting the Bible from a very young age. I could see very obvious hypocrisy in it. I mean, 8 or 9 years old, just going, you're saying one thing, you're doing another. It's all about the show. It was just, I just didn't trust it, not in the way it was presented to me. But as I got older, you start arguing with some of these people, and I realized, well, I don't really have the knowledge and the depth of experience to argue about some of these things. So I became very obsessed with it. I read the Old Testament, the New Testament. I got so many other books, kind of talking about the theology of it, and basically read everything I could. I read the Gnostic Gospels, anything I could get my hands on. And the one thing I could come up with was, well, a lot of this is historical, a lot of this is good stuff, but really the only thing I really took away from it was the red letters. It's like if you just live by the teachings, a lot of this other stuff doesn't even matter. And I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off when I say the resurrection doesn't matter. I I think we're misinterpreting what the resurrection is. I'm not necessarily so sure that it is what we believe it is. Again, these are my beliefs, and this is my journey of looking down at these. I'll tell you another funny story too, because this all started really. Nicole had been trying to get me to do a solo show for a while, and just like before starting a podcast, I didn't really know what it was going to be until I realized, oh, I could just bullshit with people, and I'm good at that. I thought doing a solo show is it's not for me. I don't really know what I'm talking about, and so I tried one. Um, and I found myself, I mean, it was a message. It was a message of unity and love, and trying let's treat each other with kindness. Ended up quoting Jesus a couple times, and it's like, man, I really ought to dig into more of that. And so, as I was thinking about it, I go to get my oil changed one day, which is a weird day to do it. I didn't really have time, but we were getting ready to leave town. I was like, I'll just go do it today. I don't know when I'm have another chance. And I was having there was a bunch of Gideons laying out. A lot of the Gideon Bibles don't have the red letters in them, but this one did. It sitting there was a red letter edition of a Gideon. And I think these are free. I hope I didn't steal this. Man, that'd be a horrible way to start a show out on a stolen Bible, wouldn't it? But I think that's kind of what Gideons are for, right? Take these things. Um, and this one's going to get used to a good purpose. So we'll just start right out. This is going to be very unconventional. This might just piss everyone in the world off. Again, these are my interpretations of how um, I see what is written in these words. And again, this is a translation of a translation of a translation. But in my understanding, a lot of the red letter stuff is has been kept pretty close. It's the black letter stuff I don't really trust or care about. I frankly don't think it matters when you're coming into just the teachings and how to live your life. If you want to be, a theologist and line up all that stuff, and it's been great fun playing with Grok and lining up Sumerian history and Babylonian history and Hebrew, and like the names change, but the stories are the same. I mean, it's all fascinating, and I believe a lot of that stuff happened. I don't know. I guess where I get into it is like the God of the Old Testament to me is not the same God of the New Testament, right? The God of the Old Testament was a mass murdering psychopath, and that actually lines up with who we think, were on this planet at the time. If you want to subscribe to the Anunnaki leadership that taught us how to build and basically accelerated our DNA to make us a slave class, right? And then we observed the gods fighting each other, right? And one of them, Amun Ra, Amen. We had to say his name after, any sentence. There's a lot of that stuff. That's some of it's apocryphal, some of it's actual history, but it's lost to lore, right? We're never going to find the absolute truth, and maybe we will. Maybe if we find Noah's Ark, I know like CIA thinks they found it in Turkey, and we found these shafts under the Egyptian pyramids. So, the definition of apocalypse, and I got a couple things pulled up here I want to take a look at. Um, I'll be my own producer here. So the definition of apocalypse. The general definition is a catastrophic event causing widespread destruction, collapse, or the end of the world as we know it. That is not the dictionary. Um, in my meaning, I think the dictionary actually calls it it's from the Greek apocalypsis, meaning uncovering or revelation. It originally implied revealing hidden truths, not necessarily destruction. That is the colloquial definition of apocalypse, a world ending thing. The actual definition coming from the Greek is uncovering or a revelation. We are in an age right now where more than ever, more truths are being found out. There's also a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. But if we just kind of keep that in mind and just look at the red letters, put everything else aside for right now, I think there's enough just in the book of Matthew alone that if people would actually start living by some of this stuff, I think it would really change. I think it could change the course of history. Um, so the first red letter, and again, I don't know if this is Sermon on the Mount. I don't know. I don't care where he was born. I don't care about the manger and all that stuff and the kings and the prophecy. All I care about are what's in red, what he actually said, what his message was to teaching, right? That's kind of like the same way with music. I don't care about Soundgarden documentaries. I don't care about what happened behind the scenes or how the record was recorded. I care about what was on that album, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but Jesus came up with a kick-ass set of teachings, and we're gonna go through them. I don't know how far we're gonna get. We're gonna start with Matthew. I think Matthew 4 is our first one. Let me pull this up so you guys can read along. This is the same thing I'm reading. This is the King James red letters. I'm just at kingjamesbibleonline.org. Man, what a mouthful. Can you do like KGV online or something? KJV, whatever. So the first thing we hear from Jesus is in Matthew chapter 4, verse 4. He says, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." And so, I mean, he's just kicking it right off the bat. Yeah, you can, I mean, you need things to survive, but if you truly want to get to the next level, if you truly want your life to be a spiritual one, you need to live by these teachings. And then he drops down to 7. It is written again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Um, that's one that gets thrown around a lot. Shall not tempt him. Um, what is this, Matthew? And we'll use Grok a little bit to. That's Matthew 4:7. What does Matthew 4:7 mean? We'll say, there's a lot of different interpretations of this one, and I just want to see. I hope I've got Grok on the screen here for you. Nope, I need to change tabs. This ought to do it for you guys so you can see what I'm doing here. Matthew 4:7. So the verse occurs during the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. Satan is testing Jesus. In this specific instance, Satan takes Jesus to the highest point of the temple in Jerusalem and challenges himself to throw himself down. Do not put your Lord God to the test. That means one should not demand God prove himself through unnecessary formal manipulative acts. Jesus is emphasizing, so don't ask God to prove it. You're not playing horse with him, right? It's like, here are these teachings, you live by them or you don't, but you don't. You basically don't. You don't ask him to prove it. Get thee hence, Satan, for it is. Wouldn't you like to just say that to somebody? Get thee hence from me. It's a good one. Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. And so he's got a little shit talking with Satan here. We get into Matthew 17 or 4:17. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And that's something I've always wondered. There's the heaven on earth theory, right? That we make heaven here on earth, and that's an ability we have to do. And I fully believe that. I don't believe in the heaven that I was taught. I was taught that when you die, you go to this place it's gold. It basically looks like Trump Tower, right? And all your loved ones were there. Well, what about the divorces and all the bad relationships? Does that just go away? Are you still in a physical body of any? I don't think that's how that works. That you're just like hanging out in a bar, like an open bar for free, and just doing whatever you want to do. And I don't know. I don't believe that we have. I believe we have celestial bodies At that point, I don't think. I think there's probably an arbiter of souls. And if you level up, you go into a fourth dimension. And a fourth dimension can see time, can see all time at once, right? So if we look at a two-dimensional being, it can only move up, down, left, right. It doesn't know there's an underside to this book. It doesn't know how deep it is. three-dimensional beings have no understanding of actual time, whereas a fourth dimensional being can see and then scientifically be able to place things. They see at this time he's going to need this. They can go back. I mean, scientifically, God actually works. We don't know what God is. We can't even understand or comprehend. Um, so the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Get your shit together, man. Um, 19, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Um, Listen to what I'm saying and you can change people's lives. And then Matthew 5, he kind of goes on a blessed are those kind of rant down. I want to look at my time. I don't want to ramble too much. We're 10 minutes into this. We'll try to go for an hour. We'll see. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I will tell you, I spend a lot of time with poor people. They're some of my favorite people because they live real lives with real problems, dealing with real shit. You see the people coming into 16 General, their cars are duct taped together. They're trying to get to work, but, and some of that's by making bad choices. Some of it's by just life shitting on you. Some of it's, who knows? Maybe you had medical bills or whatever, but, um, poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. A lot of those people are real people. They're trying hard. Um, and then on the flip side, a lot of and I know a lot of rich people too. A lot of them are horrible human beings. There's some good ones. It's much rarer, but I see a lot more reality in people who don't have money. And just in my experience. And another thing, I don't want this to turn into like a me preaching at anybody like I know anything. I don't know anything. I'm just trying to put some focus back on like we as people. How can we get better? How can we love each other a little bit more? You know what I'm saying? Um, the reason I think I have some understanding of this is because I'm at a point in my life at 43 years old where I've seen a lot of shit and been through a lot of shit. And I went to about the darkest place you can get after my grandpa died from 22 to 24. Those 2 years, I was completely black isolation, blaming everybody. COVID had happened. Everybody was lying to us. I was in the deepest, darkest hole, and I didn't think I would ever get out without a bullet. And I did. And I'm more mentally healthy now than I ever have been. And I started looking at some of the things I was doing to change. And then in reading some of this, it's like, oh, that's all in here. Like maybe this is a good starting point. So I don't want this to come off as like some douchebag know it all saying I got all the answers because I don't. But I do think a lot of them are in here, and I think we just need to put a spotlight back on it. And actually, these are actions, man. These aren't just something you put on a t-shirt or what would Jesus do bracelet or all your fucking Christian merch that you guys like to wear around so proudly and virtue signal. Are you living it? Like, I don't care if you got the coolest 316 t-shirts in the world, right? Are you living it? Okay. And he actually talks about this. Jesus is actually pretty hard. He's a pretty hard ass dude when you get into some of this. He's a fucking alpha male. And I love that. He's not just love and peace, bro. And the hippies were right. I do believe. Um, but I think they were just stoned out of their mind and maybe weren't able to effectively really push this. But blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Um, those that mourn, you know, you look at it as a parent, right? And that's the way I view God now. It's like if you teach your kids, try to avoid them learning the hard way, right? Rick Owens told me something his dad told him the other day. He said, his dad said, if you want to give your kids a hard life when they're adults, give them an easy one now. And no truer words have been spoken. Um, I think we've seen that now after, especially, I mean, my generation was probably the first, maybe my dad's, but they've gotten easier progressively. But kids need to do shit. They need to work. They need to learn. They need to really put it in hard when they're young. Because if you protect them and shelter them from everything, and I get this a lot as a dad who posts stuff with my kids on social media, I get a lot of Karens coming and saying, oh my God, that's so dangerous. That's so, life is risk, right? So as long as I'm there to supervise, right? My kids aren't just out there doing this alone, right? I'm there to supervise. Something goes wrong, I can drive them to the hospital. Maybe it'll be a broken bone. Maybe they'll learn a lesson from it. But sheltering them and not allowing to do any of those things, first of all, what they're going to do is they're going to wait till you're not around. They're going to know, hey, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm going to do it anyway. So being open and transparent with your kids, try to avoid them from learning all the hard lessons by talking to them, talking to them, talking to them, talking through things, talking through consequences. I'm an inquisitive person. So when I ask my parents, why this? Because I say so, not an answer. And so if you're not going to give me the answer, I'm going to go find it. And I really don't like it when parents do that because I say so. Well, but you have let your kid down. And I've had disagreements with my wife about this. I think kids ought to have full transparency. Now, there's certain things I want to protect them from, like sex and stuff like that. They need to be kids. I don't need to be worrying about that stuff. They're going to think it's gross anyway, right? Until puberty kicks in and all that stuff. But um, let's see, where are we? I think it's very important to teach kids when they're young how to navigate life. So when they are adults and when you're not around all the time, it's not going to be so hard. But he says in 5:6, blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness. He's talking about the action of doing these things. All right, we're back. There's one thing I missed actually in Matthew 3. I want to go back to that. He says, suffer it to be so now, for thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. And so I think righteousness is really a lot of what is in this sermon. So thirst for righteousness, you shall be filled. So seeking the actions it takes to live these consciously, um, not just saying them, not just virtue signaling, but actually living them and trying to make these tenets in your life. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall seek God. And I don't think you can truly get on a journey to seek God unless you have a purity of spirit. Um, and we'll get to some more of that. I'm really not trying to read ahead. I'm kind of trying to go along this. I'm reading ahead a little bit, just to kind of formulate my own ideas. But most of this is just off the cuff, me winging it. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And I was going back to, thinking about God as children. We are as God's children, right? Nobody wants to say no, but sometimes you need to smack them upside the head a little bit. Not really, but you get it. Um, and say, hey, this is not the right way to live. So being called the children of God, I can imagine when you look at your kids and they don't listen and they make mistakes, it's very disappointing, right? Especially when you as the parent have the way to say, hey, here's the path, and being transparent. I think God is the same way. He gives us free will, right? But rather than follow the instructions laid out, we are selfish people by nature. We want to make ourselves feel good. We want to achieve as much as we can. We want to make as much money as we can. We want to be wealthy. We want to, whatever our goals are in life, not many people whose life is just to be a good person. I don't know. I'm kind of freaking that aspect, but I feel like just being a good person, and especially when I've had kids. I was a selfish prick like the rest of us before I had kids, but it's until you start observing that those kids are looking at you for everything, like you are what they are observing. That's when I decided, I've got to do things my kids are proud of, not things they're going to have to change for their kids, right? Um, and I've talked a little bit about immortality, but I think immortality, heaven, I think there's something to that, and Jesus talks about this stuff too. Like achieving immortality is, I think, a couple of things. I think reaching a higher plane of consciousness, of Christ consciousness on this earth. I think upon dying, that energy going into a fourth dimension, um, and leveling up. But I also think it's the things we produce and the way our children's paths are guided by us. How good of a person can you make your child? That's immortality. If your child is continuing the things you did as a parent, that makes you live on through them, right? And so, um, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So, and you see this a lot right now. People trying to be good people, doing what's right, and they're just attacked left and right. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Um, it happens. Um, you know, probably piss a lot of people off with this, but that's what got Trump elected. People thought that he was being reviled and persecuted, and all manner of false evil was being said against him. He might not be a perfect person, but man, God uses all kinds of people to enact His will. And you know, maybe Trump's one of them, maybe not, but there was a lot of shenanigans going on there. Jesus talks a lot in Matthew 5. I don't know how far. What are we in? From it. So let's try and get through Matthew 5. So rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Um, that's just going through the slings and arrows, man. Don't sell out. Don't join the wrong side just because it's the popular side, right? Stick to your guns. This is why COVID was so devastating, is because people were scared. First of all, so fear was used as a tactic, and then we did all the wrong things, and there weren't even enough people to stand up to try and say, "Hey, this is all kind of nonsense. It's a common cold, and we're doing all this stuff to enforce authoritarian, principles." How many businesses went under? How many people died, both and couldn't see their loved ones? How many people died from the vaccines? Right? Basically, stick to your guns. You're gonna get. I was called a murderer. I've been called a racist, homophobic, all kinds of lies because of who I support politically. And I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to just join the other side. I'm not going to be antagonistic about it, right? But I believe what I believe, and I think you ought to stand by your guns. And I think that also sets a good principle for your kids. If your kids see you being wishy-washy, well, this side's might be more popular right now, things are going to come around. Things are going to shake up. If you are staying true to who you are and who your core is, I think things are going to be okay in the end. It might be tough going for a little bit, though. I'm not saying any of this is supposed to be easy. This isn't like a life hack. What isn't, it isn't. The message is here for us to live by, but you got to do the work, right? Ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth. I have a hard time reading this old. Thenceforth, good for nothing, to be cast out and to be trodden under the foot of men. So if you're a salty dude, you got that salt upon you, and you lose that salt, you're worthless. You just going along with the wind, man. You're just another sheep out there. 5:14. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Okay, so now we're starting to get into a little bit more esoteric stuff. Light. Um, I want to. Well, we'll get there in a minute. But Nikola Tesla believed that light and energy were all interconnected, right? He came up with forms of um, wireless electric back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. But the JP Morgans of the world, the gas companies, they didn't want that because it's going to put them out of business, right? Just like today, you don't want competitors. You want to shut those competitors down. What happened when social media started getting censored? You were getting censored for telling the truth on YouTube, on Facebook, on, at the time, Twitter. And then Parler came out. Parler as an alternative, free speech platform. And guess what? They got shut down. Amazon said you can't use our servers. And then Rumble came out of that, right? Which now that's turned into like a right wing, um, whatever it is. Then Elon bought Twitter, turned it into X. So I think more ideas are getting out there now versus being censored. We need the best ideas. If you're only getting one set of ideas, then you're not getting the full side of the story, right? We need both sides of the story. We need to be able to do a little bit of work and a little bit of research. We got to put the work in on everything. I mean, it's so lazy to just read a headline. And then, the Nazis were great at propaganda. Repeat a lie enough, people will believe it. And so you get a lie repeated to you enough, you're not doing any research, and then you just start hating the other side. I can't believe the other side is so evil. They get demonized, right? They're no longer our brothers and sisters. Take three. Two interruptions already. And man, it makes me want to. I'm kidding. It is annoying though. I'm probably get interrupted again. Still not house cleaning. Just my family coming back every 5 minutes because they forgot something. So, patience. But we're talking about Matthew 5:13, salt of the earth. Basically, if you lose that saltiness, if you lose that core, that moral sinner, you're good for nothing, but to be cast out and trodden under the foot of men, which is exactly what happens, right? Once you become that sheep class, you're just trodden. Uh, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. So if you're living by these things, your actions will naturally, I think, draw people to you. Right? You see a good person. If you're hating on that person because they're a good person, then what's wrong with you, right? But people who actually live this, and I know some of them, and they're beautiful people. Not all of them are Christian, but they live in the light, and they live in a way that is positive and productive. Um, 15. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and giveth light unto all that are in the house. Yeah, so these things, I kind of have a, we'll get to that in a little bit. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Basically, just live it. He's not talking about preaching it. He's not talking about going and preaching to people and telling people, like, just live it by example, and people will see that and they will notice that, and I think that more than anything will bring them toward some of this stuff versus you go out and pushing it on somebody. Nobody wants to be sold. And no offense, but Christians are some of the worst marketers of your own religion out there. The hypocrisy, the salesmanship, oh, you got to come to this church. We have blue hair and we play metal music. I don't care. I want to be at a church with a bunch of weirdos. I just want to live my life in a way. I don't need that fellowship. I created my own family. We don't all have to agree. But one thing I do want to surround myself with is positivity. So I don't think there's any one church that's going to fix it. I don't think there's any one congregation that's going to fix it. I think it's going to be people living it and then choosing who they want to be around, right? Cutting out that negativity, that person that's always just bitching that just brings you down with them. Um, so think about um, that as we go into 17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill. So he's kind of going back to some prophecy of the Old Testament stuff. I think in the book of Daniel, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. So he's saying here, I'm not here to overthrow the government. Basically, I'm here to teach light. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever shall do and teach them the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. I think that's really just about teaching your kids right and wrong. Like if you're teaching and sometimes we do it involuntarily, right? That kids learn by example. So if you're teaching your kids bad things that they're going to pass on, and that's your immortality, that's how your kids are going to go out into the world, versus teaching them how to be good people, good, loving, kind people. It's like I've always told my kids, be kind, but don't take any shit. There's a big difference. And Jesus, I don't feel like took any shit either. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. So he's basically saying, you got a low bar. All these priests, the scribes and Pharisees, the people who work for the church, if you can do better than them, you're going to be fine. Because a lot of those people are hypocrites. You've heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whatsoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. Pretty obvious, I would think. But what about on a spiritual level? What if you're killing somebody spiritually? What if you are such a negative person in life that you kill other people's spirit, which keeps them from living a life like that? I think um, he might be getting into something like that. That's my interpretation of it. Um, but I say unto you that whoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment, and whoever shall say to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. So let's go to Grok and see what Raka is. Um, I think it's just like a curse word, if I'm not mistaken. Um, all caps. What is Raka in context? of the book of Matthew. Let's see what it says. Um, Specifically 5:22, which is what we're on. Raka appears in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, where he addresses the seriousness of anger and insults. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister shall be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, I think that's how you say it properly. Raka is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fires of hell. So the meaning of Raka, let's look into this a little bit. Um, Definition. Raka is an Aramaic term, likely transliterated into Greek in the New Testament, meaning something like empty-headed, worthless, or fool. It's a dumbass. It was a derogatory insult used to demean someone's intelligence or value, expressing contempt or scorn. In the Jewish culture, now this is all making sense now. Don't call people names. And I've said this on social media. As soon as you start name calling, you have lost the argument. No one is listening to you anymore. In the Jewish culture, Jesus' time, verbal insults were taken seriously as they reflected deep disrespect and could escalate conflicts. Raka wasn't just a casual slight, it was a personal attack. So calling somebody racist or sexist or meant to degrade someone's dignity. Jesus' point, he expands on the commandment against murder, teaching that anger and insults are rooted in the same heart condition as murder. By condemning the use of raka, Jesus emphasizes that harboring contempt or verbally attacking someone's worth violates God's law of love and carries spiritual consequences. So, um, I don't know how much we want to go down. We'll do the consequences in the verse. Judgment, saying Raka makes one answerable to the court, likely referring to the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council, indicating a serious offense. The progression in the verse, saying Raka and calling someone a fool, shows escalating severity, with the latter linked to the fire of hell, suggesting such attitudes reflect the heart of God. Okay, yeah, we'll move on from there. So basically, don't call names. Name calling is something that just escalates a situation. It never solves anything, and that's actually a really underrated uh righteousness of the said by that old time. And here we are, another break. Take four. It's unfortunate my right hand is covered. Should I get on the other side? Because I've used my right hand for emphasis a lot. I think going for, I'm not going to stop this one, by God. And the cleaning people haven't even got here. It's just three family interruptions. Is there anything about killing your children in here, or is that a little aggressive? Um, okay, so we were talking about Matthew 5:22. Don't call names. I think we can break that down pretty easily. Calling people names, just don't do it. And be active about it. If you're about to say something nasty, just don't. Don't escalate a situation with name calling. We can have conversations that are respectful. Um, and yeah, let's leave that at highly important, and we'll move on to 23. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother has aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. If you've got all kinds of family drama and baggage, then you are basically held in a suspended point. You are not able to reach a higher consciousness because you have no gifts to give because you're being bogged down in the mud. You can't really get to the next level when you've got all these family problems. Either solve them or cut them out, right? Cutting them out is a great answer. Um, Okay, so agree with thine adversary quickly while thou art in the way with him, lest at any time oh God, this would be much better if I could actually fucking read, right? Agree with thine adversary quickly whilst thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. So I don't think this is just saying get along with everybody. I think there's a political aspect to it. I think there is. Yeah, get along with everybody as much as you can. You don't have to. I think it's a little bit of probably talking about some political aptitude or acumen, as they call it in the corporate world. Um, be friends with everybody. Just if you If you hate a person in your heart, you might not like somebody, but you're going to have to work with people you don't like, right? Be cool. Don't cause any, you might not like a person, but you're going to have to work with them. Just be cool. But I also think there's a spiritual angle to this. I think if you have an adversary and it's something you're dwelling on. And again, all of this is coming from my own perspective. I'm not claiming to be an expert or claiming to know anything. I'm saying when I was in the darkest hole in my life from 22 to 24, um, you know, I wanted to end things. And these are the kinds of things that helped. I had to let go of a lot of baggage and able to move forward. So now in hindsight, I'm going back and saying, hey, what are the specifics? Maybe this can help somebody else. But I think he talks about a judge. Is he talking about an actual judge or is he talking about a spiritual judge? Because if you've got a lot of hate in your heart, then you will be cast into a prison of your own mind in a way. So it's like people who you might have somebody at work that you don't like, and then you go home and then you're bitching about it. Well, you're not at work anymore. They can't control you there, but you're still angry about it and you want to talk about it. You're in a prison. You're in a mental prison that you cannot get out of because you can't let go of something you can't control. I think that's really what 25 means. Verily, I say unto thee, I wonder, should I get a newer version or is this just amusing to talk like this? It's hard to read, I'll tell you that. I'm not used to reading these and thous and four thousts and foreskins or whatever. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. You're not going to get out of that prison until the spiritual prison unless you do what you got to do to separate yourself from that negativity. And if he means it literally, um, you know, I'm not sure how literally he's talking there. Let's see. Let's have Grok explain Matthew 25 and 26. Let's have it do this. This would work. It's just not letting me get into the box. That's the problem. Okay, so does this work? Let's refresh. Do an F5. No, it's not letting me click it. Damn it. Here we go. Start over. Explain Matthew 5. What are we on? 5:25 and 26. Let's see what Grok says. Ain't no meditating today. Get an early one out of me. So it emphasizes the importance of reconciliation and resolving conflicts promptly to avoid escalating consequences. Okay, yeah. Um, and look, there's a literal and a spiritual meaning. He's teaching about living righteously, addressing issues like anger in relationships. He urges his followers to go beyond mere legal compliance and pursue peace in their interactions. The literal meaning, the verses use a legal metaphor. If somebody has a grievance against you, an adversary suing you, settle it quickly before it reaches the court. If it goes to trial, you risk being judged, imprisoned, and forced to pay the full penalty. In the ancient world, debtors' prisons were common, and failure to pay could lead to prolonged consequences. So there's the literal. There's a spiritual application, which I was thinking. Reconcile over conflict, settle disputes with others, maintain peace, and avoid the judgment of unresolved sin and broken relationships. This aligns with his earlier teaching on reconciling with others before offering gifts to God. Some interpret the judge and prison as metaphors for divine judgment. Unresolved sin or refusal to seek forgiveness could lead to spiritual consequences, emphasizing the need for repentance and reconciliation with God and others. The last penny suggests the thoroughness of divine justice, where every sin must be accounted for. So basically, I mean, that's I'm going to use my own interpretation there. I think when you start getting into spirituality, heaven, hell, I think those are places in the mind. These are third dimensional teachings. We are third dimensional beings. I don't think we can comprehend what a lot of that stuff is. So I think a lot of this is really the prison of the mind. And I've been in that prison. It's not a good place to be. I know a lot of people who are in that prison right now and are doing nothing to get out of it. So we got 25, 26. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. Um, I'm gonna just call that one "Don't be a creeper." You know what I mean? I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at a good-looking lady. Summertime, lots of skin exposed. Um, Trying to pursue it. I mean, especially if you're married, that's a completely different story. I really do think the devil is trying to prevent me from recording this episode. This is, this is insane. But we were talking about the lust and all that. Looking upon a woman to lust after hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. I think that has a lot to do with intent. Appreciation versus um, like trying to execute a scenario, right? Like if you're angling toward it, right? Like I don't see anything wrong with just like looking at a lady and appreciating it. But if you're like trying to hook up with her, yeah, I could see that. Um, Now here's where it starts getting interesting. Um, a lot of commentary on this. We're on 29. Let's see. Can we pull 29 up to the top? There we go. So we get up to Matthew 29. If thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee, for it is profitable to thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. I like this. And I think the way I really interpret this and the way I really use it is if there's a person, say an individual, that is just a toxic thing and it's just not good for me mentally, get rid of it. If it's going to put my soul in a dark place, it's going to prevent me from moving on spiritually to the next level. Adios. And this goes to family, blood family. I don't know what the obsession is, and Jesus gets to that in here too. That's one of the big takeaways I got when I was a kid. I'm not sure if it's red letter stuff or black letter stuff. I know there's the story where he's hanging out with his buddies. Somebody's like, "Your mom's here," and he's like, "My mother and brothers are already here." He chose his family, right? Um, so yeah, if there's something you're doing, if there's an action you're doing, if it's alcohol, if it's heroin or um, hell, I don't know, adultery, something that's keeping you from achieving that Christ consciousness level, get rid of it. Be done. It's not always easy, you know. Um, I went through. I was on opiates for years for my back until after back surgery. It's the most hellish addiction of all time, and getting off of that was horrendous. It's not always easy getting rid of that stuff, but if something's going to kill you or keep you spiritually dark, get rid of it, man. I like that one. I like 29. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and that not thy whole body should be cast into hell. Kind of a repeat. It's been said, whoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorce. But I say unto you that whoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, so unless she cheats on you, you cause her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. Um, That's one that I'm not super clear on. I think that might be some stuff with the time there. Let's see what Grok has to say on Matthew 5:31 and 32. Because that's a weird one. Um, Interpret Matthew page 5. What are we looking at? 20, 31, 32, 32. Okay, what's Grok saying? Part of the Sermon on the Mount. Oh, this is the NIV, but so the context: Jesus teaching about righteousness that surpasses mere legalism. He addresses hard issues like anger and lust, and before tackling divorce, his approach challenges cultural practice and calls for a higher standard of faithfulness. Um, the Old Testament background, he's referencing Deuteronomy, which allowed a man to divorce his wife by giving her a certificate of divorce if he found something indecent in her. By Jesus' time, Jewish leaders debated what indecent meant. The school of Hillel permitted divorce for trivial reasons, it was like no fault divorce, um, like burning a meal. Could you imagine? Bitch, you burned the casserole. You're divorced. While the school of Shammai restricted it to serious offenses like adultery. This lax approach to divorce, especially among men, was common in the culture. So Jesus' teachings challenging cultural norms. Jesus raises the bar, rejecting casual divorce. Okay, I like this. I like this a lot. So many people jump out of marriages for stupid, selfish reasons. They're not getting enough sex, or they're not getting to do what they want to do. Um, Especially people with kids. Like, are you thinking of what you're going to put those kids through when you're jumping out of a relationship for selfish reasons? I'm not saying you should stay for abuse or obviously infidelity, things like that. But my God, we've gotten to where just anything we don't like now, and it's a divorce, and a lot of it's public and it's embarrassing. And um, I'm glad there's a little bit of definition on this. I'm curious to read. Um, so the phrase "except for sexual immorality," Greek porneia, broadly meaning sexual sin, including adultery, allows divorce in cases of marital unfaithfulness. This suggests that sexual immortality breaks the marriage covenant, justifying divorce as an exception. Fair enough. Consequences of divorce. Jesus states that divorcing a wife for reasons other than sexual immortality makes her the victim of adultery, or causes her to commit adultery in some translations. This likely reflects the social reality. A divorced woman, often left vulnerable, might remarry to survive, and the original husband bears responsibility for putting her in that position. Similarly, a man marrying a divorced woman from an invalid divorce commits adultery, as the original marriage remains valid in God's eyes. Spiritual and practical implications, sanctity of marriage. Let's just um, Jesus emphasized that marriage is a divine institution. Divorce, except in extreme cases, violates God's design. Hard issues, like his teachings on lust and anger, Jesus focuses on intent. Frivolous divorce reflects a lack of commitment and fidelity, which begins in the heart. I fully believe that. Um, we have made it. I mean, I took my vows seriously. Marriage is not perfect. It's hard. It's a long gauntlet. And there's good times, there's bad times, but especially when you have kids, as long as you're aligned on what is best for those kids, then use that as your glue. Figure out the rest later, but in the time when your kids are in their prime, I should say, they need to come first. I don't want to spend all day on this because I think this is, I think I've gotten my point across as far as just like, man, the no fault divorce, which is a Reagan thing, as far as I'm concerned, really has screwed this country up, and it's really screwed kids up. And then it sets an example for kids. Oh, I don't like who I married anymore. Then I'm going to jet. And I think it's a lot different when you don't have kids, when you're not having to worry about what that entails, because that can be devastating. So we're talking. Where are we at? We're on like 20. Okay. Again, ye have heard that it has been said by them of old time, Thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, nor God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, nay, 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 for whosoever is worth more than these cometh of evil. Really sounds like a handshake agreement. It's like, just stick to your word and don't be grandiose about it, I think. Um, I don't really want to go into Grok on that. I think what my takeaway is going to be from that whole segment is just do what you say you're going to do. Don't be all grandiose and swear on God's name or whatever. Um, a lot of that's virtue signaling anyway. You've heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. Um, yeah, so I know there's some right cheek discrepancies and like how that's interpreted. The rest of it's pretty simple. Like, man, don't get caught up in possessions. I don't know why you would say like if somebody sues the for the coat, let them have like cloak also. Like, is that? I don't know. It kind of sounds like being a bitch to me. I don't know. I want to look at let's ask Grok. Let's 39 through. Let's just look at Grok 539. So that's the one that I really am confused about. Please explain, Matthew. Why do I always put an R in there? 539. Engage. Okay. The verse is part of Jesus' teaching on retaliation and love for enemies, where he challenges the principle of an eye for an eye and calls for a radical response to evil. So he's addressing how his followers should live righteously, surpassing the legalistic interpretations of the law. He references the Old Testament principle of proportional justice, which was meant to limit vengeance, but was sometimes used to justify personal retaliation. Jesus offers a higher standard. Literal meaning, do not resist an evil person. The phrase doesn't mean passivity in the face of evil or injustice, but rather not responding with personal vengeance or violence. Okay, that makes sense. The Greek word for resist, uh, antisthemi, often implies opposing or standing against in a confrontational way. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, a slap on the right cheek in cultural context, this is what I was talking about, like refers to an insult or public humiliation rather than a violent attack. Since most people are right-handed, a slap to the right cheek would typically be a backhanded strike, a gesture of contempt, or in ancient Jewish culture, turn to them the other cheek, offering the other cheek as a deliberate, non-violent response. It refuses to retaliate or escalate the conflict, instead of demonstrating dignity and self-control. So, okay, I can think on that. So rather than retaliating, getting revenge, let things go, maybe. Um, Honor and shame govern social interactions. Yeah, I think a lot of this was written for its day, for its time. Let's look at the modern application um, in the theological nuance. This verse challenges individuals to respond to personal offenses with grace and restraint rather than anger or revenge. That makes sense. Somebody comes after you. Okay, that's a good example, like social media. Somebody comes after me and attacks me. Am I going to start calling them names back? No, then I'm just going to be the same piece of shit they are, right? But deal with it with grace and restraint rather than anger or revenge. So in conflicts in work or online, turning the other cheek might mean refusing to engage in petty arguments or slander. Okay, so there we have our answer. Grok is helping me understand. I'm gaining a deeper understanding of this stuff. It doesn't mean tolerate, and see, I said it sounds kind of bitch made. It doesn't mean tolerating abuse or injustice passively. Jesus himself confronted injustice in John and taught standing for righteousness. The focus here is on personal, nonviolent responses to evil. So in extreme cases, it has inspired figures like Martin Luther King Jr., who advocated nonviolent. Okay, so really the key takeaway here. They actually have a key takeaway for us. Calls Christians to respond to personal insults and evil with non-retaliation. But yeah, I would just liken this to online. Somebody's attacking you. Don't embarrass yourself. Just handle it in a way that your kids could be proud of. Right? Don't turn into a madman and just start um, bludgeoning your enemy there. Somebody's talking shit. Just let them. Don't get back. You're not gonna win that argument with name calling. Right? Win it with logic. And these are, what do we ask Grok? 530, um, 5 for 9. You've heard that it hath been said. So we're on 43 now, 543. We're going to do 3 through 8 and we'll call it a day because that's a lot in Matthew 5. Because 6 is all red letters, 7 is all red letters. Then we get down into still a lot to go. We'll do this. We'll try and get through this chapter. So you've heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despisefully use you and persecute you. Okay, this is one that really, really, really resonates with me. So there's a lot of people who hate me. You're going to be online. You're going to be a public figure. You're going to piss some people off, right? That's fine. As long as, what I feel like I'm doing is productive, positive thing, that's their problem. But rather than hating them, which is your first instinct, right? You hate me, so I'm going to hate you back. And that used to be the way I was. I was definitely that way. But again, having kids and having seen, I've told the story of, I used to punch things when I get mad. When I was a kid, I punched the holes in drywall. You know, um, Later on, I'd go out and punch a tree or just the ground, and Max kicked a hole in the drywall one time. He was like 4. He was little. And it was a huge revelation for me. Like it changed my life. I think I told this story on the last podcast, but I never can tell what I've told, what I haven't. So if I'm rambling, just, you know, keep listening. Um, but this is one that's happened to me a lot lately where people come and attack me and call me names. And I legitimately feel sorry for these people. Like I really feel sad for them. Not angry, not hateful, not wanting to get them back in any way. It's just like, man, what a sick, dark, twisted place you're in. And I wish I could help. I have offered to help some people, and they've told me to fuck off and whatever. But not everybody's open to it. But I definitely agree with that 100%. I think that's one of the best lines in the entire book. Love your enemies, man. Even if they hate you. Um, and this goes back to how you handle being treated like shit. Are you gonna start stabbing a dude, or are you gonna handle it gracefully and respectfully and not engage in that kind of stuff? If you don't engage, it makes them look a fool. It does. It basically resolves itself. If you get into it, then it's, well, now you're both, we've got a conflict that goes back forever. But um, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and send rain on the just and the unjust. We're all in this together, right? For if you love them which love you, which reward have you? Do not even the publicans do the same? Um, I don't know what a publican is. We can look that up, but I want to talk about this one. What is a publican in text of Matthew? That's the 8th time I've put an R in Matthew. This is also the longest segment I haven't been interrupted. Maybe the armed guard at the door is helping. I don't know. In context, it's a tax collector. Okay, so back then, nobody liked tax collectors. Nobody likes the IRS, so we'll just call it that and we'll move on. So even the publicans love the people who love them. Yeah, that's the easy part, right? You're going to love your kids. You're going to love certain people, but loving your enemies, that's the challenge. And that's where it gets into talking about what I said earlier about you have to work at it. There is some action required of you, um, to do these things, to consciously think about it and say, I'm not going to hate this person. I'm going to love them. I'm going to feel sorry for them, maybe. Um, but if you salute your brethren only, what more are you doing than others? If you just love, the people. Now, I don't think that means, and then we'll end on 48. I don't think that means that you have to put up with their abuse and be around them. I don't believe that at all. I think you should, if these people are toxic and if they are your enemies and they don't like you, I think it's toxic to keep them around you. But you don't have to hate them, because let's say you do cut them out, but you're still hating them in your heart. You still have that blackness on your soul, right? So if you can let go of that hate, you don't have to be around them. Cut it out, man. Cut out all the negativity, right? That's how I see that. I mean, love them, feel sorry for them, pray for them, hope that they find some kind of peace. And then the last line, we'll end on this one. Um, Matthew 5:48. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father, which in heaven is perfect. Now, this is one of those things where none of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. Never been perfect. I never will be perfect. But some of us don't even try, right? So, um, when it comes to music, which is probably the only thing I can really like one-on-one relate this to, I want it to be perfect. You shoot for perfection, right? And if you shoot for perfection, wherever you land, hopefully, is pretty damn good, right? So I don't think anybody's ever going to be perfect. Not us humans, not anybody in this third dimensional body. But um, I do think if you try to be, then you're going to see a lot better results than if you don't try. at all. So, anyway, this is a new experience for me. I plan on doing all the red letters. I know that once you get through the Gospels, it pretty much diminishes. There's a couple words in Acts, but so however long that takes me. I don't know if I'll do any more of these after that or what, but I think it's a fun exercise, and I'm learning. I'm learning how to be a better person, and I want that. I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm not an evangelical. I have a lot of problems with the church, with religion itself mostly. But the one thing that even from childhood that I've always really respected and cherished were the red letters. And I feel like we've really gotten away from those entirely. It's become more about, I mean, why are there 55 denominations? I don't know how many there are. Why are there so many denominations of Christianity? And Protestant, and then you got Catholics, and I mean, a lot of horrific things that the church does that really pushes people away. But whether you're Christian or not, I think there's value to us as Westerners, as Americans, as people um, who interact with each other on a daily basis. I think the lessons just in the chapter 5 that we read today are you know pretty powerful stuff, but it requires action from you. You have to consciously think before you type something hateful, before you do something hateful, before you complain to somebody about something who's got their own problems, right? Be positive, be productive, and be proud. Pride is not just a deadly sin. It can be if it's taken to extremes, but there is nothing wrong with being proud of what you accomplish, proud of your family. And we need to take that damn word back. You know, pride is a powerful thing. And it's not just for one community, it's for everybody. They can be proud too. We can also be proud. So we'll leave it at that. Those are kind of my key phrases that I've been trying to use for myself. And again, I get dragged into it too sometimes. I see somebody say something, I'm like, motherfucker, that's not accurate, I have to stop myself. Sometimes the next day I have to go back and delete some things. But, for the most part, I am trying. And I think, I'm a 1% a day. If I can get better 1% every day, then, after a month, I'm 30% better. I'm not saying I'm always going to hit it, but I have gone from the lowest point in my life to no longer want to live and not seeing a way out to now thriving more than I ever have. And I think putting positivity into the universe, it, I'm not saying it's a vending machine and it's just going to spit positivity back out, but I do truly believe that the universe is all around us and we put in positive energy and positive things will happen to us. That's just my thoughts. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I just think we need Jesus right now more than ever. And maybe let's study it together a little bit. Love each other. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.